March 15, 1944. Japanese Naval Intelligence Headquarters. Ada Communications Unit, Japan. Commander Atsuzo Kurihara studied the intercepted transmission, his third cup of bitter tea untouched and cold on the desk. For 18 straight hours, he and his elite team of cryptanalysts had struggled to make sense of what appeared to be U.S. Marine Corps tactical traffic linked to the Marshall Islands campaign. The sounds flooding their receivers didn't resemble random noise. Patterns emerged, signals with timing that lined up before American assaults, message lengths consistent with orders, and frequencies that matched Marine protocols. Yet the language itself was indecipherable, unlike anything cataloged in Japan's massive archive of Allied codes. Kurihara commanded one of the most advanced signals intelligence outfits in the world. The Ada complex, situated 20 miles outside Tokyo, employed 500 staff, with 118 receivers and 20 direction-finding units. His analysts had already broken U.S. diplomatic ciphers, cracked British naval systems, and exposed multiple Army codes. They had even penetrated America's State Department purple cipher before Pearl Harbor, feeding Tokyo critical insights during the war's early stages. But these Marine signals represented absolute failure. 3 years into the conflict, after solving dozens of Allied codes, Japan's brightest minds could not extract even the simplest meaning. What Kurihara couldn't know, and what no Japanese officer would grasp until the war was over, was that he was listening to the only modern military code never broken. The story didn't begin in the Pacific, but in the deserts and mesas of the American Southwest. For centuries, the Navajo people had preserved a language unlike any other. Known as Diné Bizad, Navajo belonged to the Athabascan family, with about 170,000 speakers in 1940, almost all within the 27,000 square mile reservation spanning Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado. The very traits that baffled Japanese codebreakers had evolved over millennia. Navajo was fundamentally verb-driven, with complex prefix structures capable of producing millions of combinations. It used 4 tones, high, low, rising, and falling, and that completely altered meanings. A single mispronunciation didn't just change a word, it could scramble an entire sentence. Its phonology included sounds alien to Japanese, English, and most other world tongues. Ejective consonants formed with the glottis, voiceless lateral fricatives like wind hissing through teeth, nasalized vowels and glottalized sonorants. For Japanese trained in a language with only 5 vowels, parsing these sounds was nearly impossible. One man recognized its military value, Philip Johnston. Born in 1892 to a missionary on the Navajo reservation, Johnston grew up fluent, one of fewer than 30 outsiders in the world who could speak it. By age 9, he translated his father's sermons. At 15, he traveled to Washington to interpret for Navajo leaders, even meeting Theodore Roosevelt. In December 1941, as America reeled from Pearl Harbor, Johnston read about Army units experimenting with Comanche and training exercises. The Choctaw had been used informally in World War I, but nothing systematic had emerged. Johnston envisioned something radically different, a structured military code built entirely on Navajo, unbreakable yet practical for modern operations. On February 28, 1942, he pitched the idea to Major General Clayton Vogel at Camp Elliott near San Diego. The demonstration stunned observers. 4 Navajo speakers transmitted a test message while Marine officers timed them against conventional ciphers. The Navajos finished in 20 seconds. The M209 machine required half an hour. Vogel immediately approved a trial program. On May 4, 1942, 29 Navajo recruits were sworn in at Fort Wingate, New Mexico. Men like Chester Nez, Carl Gorman, Lloyd Oliver, and John Benelli came from across the reservation. Some had endured boarding schools where speaking Navajo brought punishment. Others had lived traditional lives as herders, rarely leaving their homeland. At Camp Elliott, inside a locked and guarded facility, they spent 8 weeks creating a code within their language. Their task was immense. Invent terms for concepts that Navajo had never known, build an alphabet system, ensure expandability, and keep everything memorable. They relied on cultural metaphors. A submarine became Beshlo, iron fish. A battleship was Lotso, whale. Fighters were Tahiti Hai, hummingbirds. Bombers became Jaysho, buzzards. The alphabet demanded even greater ingenuity. Each English letter needed multiple Navajo equivalents to block frequency analysis. The most common letter, E, was given 4 Navajo words, Ze, elk, Adzo, ear of corn, Adkain, horse, and Zea, ear. Code talkers rotated these at random, erasing patterns. By the end of training, they had devised 201 original terms and memorized every one flawlessly. No written code books could be allowed to fall into enemy hands. Chester Nez later recalled, "We trained endlessly. One mistake could cost lives. In our tradition, words carry power. Accuracy in speech was sacred. The first true test of the code came at Guadalcanal in August 1942. 15 Navajo Code Talkers landed. With the 1st Marine Division, the Japanese had anticipated the invasion, having already cracked other Allied messages. But suddenly, Marine battlefield communications turned into complete gibberish. At the Japanese 8th Fleet headquarters in Rabaul, intelligence officers rushed to make sense of these transmissions. Lieutenant Kazuo Yamada, who had studied at Stanford before the war, reported, "The sounds are structured like a real language with consistent patterns, but they match nothing familiar, neither English, French, Dutch, Spanish, Philippine dialects, nor Chinese. Entirely foreign." The Japanese reaction was systematic. They deployed top cryptanalysts, recorded hundreds of hours onto wax cylinders, and applied every method available. University linguists were consulted, even Buddhist monks who studied ancient scripts, but no progress was made. On November 8, 1942, Code Talker Chester Nez sent artillery coordinates that wiped out a Japanese machine gun nest. His 14-second message was intercepted, but to Japanese operators it was meaningless noise. Minutes later, American shells hit precisely on target. Colonel Haruo Konuma, intelligence officer of the 17th Army, admitted, "The Americans are using a code that defeats all our efforts. We can no longer anticipate their attacks. We are fighting blind." Japan's best hope became Joe Kiyomiya, a Navajo soldier captured at Bataan in April 1942. Though fluent in Navajo, he had no knowledge of the special military code. When Japanese cryptographers began intercepting Navajo traffic, they brought him to the Owata Interrogation Center and played recordings. He recognized Navajo words but strung together in senseless phrases. The turtle attacks the iron fish. The hummingbird carries eggs. When he failed to translate, interrogators accused him of lying. Torture escalated, water torture, beatings, being hung by his arms for hours. In the winter of 1943, they forced him to stand naked in the snow until his feet froze to the ground. Starved down to 90 pounds, he was offered food if he cooperated. Yet all he could say was the truth. He understood the words, but not their coded military meaning. Japanese intelligence report from May 1943 reflected their frustration. The prisoner appears to be a native speaker of the mystery tongue, but cannot interpret the messages. Either he shows extraordinary resistance, or the enemy employs a specialized code within the language requiring specific training. The latter was correct, even fluent. Navajo speakers couldn't understand the code without training. Kiyomiya endured 3.5 years in captivity. His inability to help convinced Japanese intelligence they faced something unprecedented. By late 1943, most attempts to crack the Navajo code were abandoned. The success at Guadalcanal triggered rapid expansion. Major General Alexander Vandegrift declared, "The Navajo communicators have proven indispensable. Their messages are faster than any encoding machine and absolutely secure." Soon after, a formal code talker school was established at Camp Pendleton, graduating new classes every 8 weeks. By the war's end, between 375 and 420 Navajo Marines had served as code talkers across all 6 Marine divisions. Their training was unlike anything the Corps had ever done, practicing inside soundproof booths while simulated. Battlefield noise blared, transmitting while wearing gas masks, even running under exhaustion. Thomas Bigay, who enlisted at only 15, recalled, "They pushed us beyond human limits. Lives depended on our accuracy." The code itself kept evolving. New weapons and tactics demanded fresh terms. The atomic bomb was called Ayashi, metal egg, while kamikaze pilots became Neti, death wind. Logical to Navajo speakers, utterly impenetrable to outsiders. By mid-1943, Japanese intelligence devoted major resources to breaking it. The Imperial Navy's 4th Section assigned 30 cryptanalysts solely to these messages. Captain Yoshiro Tanaka tried everything: musical analysis of tonal patterns, comparison to Native American recordings, consultation with scholars trained in the U.S. They even developed machines to slow down transmissions without altering pitch, created oscilloscope graphs of sound waves, and ran statistical analysis of frequency patterns. Lieutenant Commander Masao Yamada later admitted they noticed recurring elements, likely call signs, message lengths matching battle complexity, but without comprehension. These were useless. Japanese commanders even ordered their forces to capture code talkers alive, offering rewards of 10,000 yen, equivalent to 10 years, pay for equipment or materials. Despite several close calls, no code talker was ever taken with gear intact. The Central Pacific Campaign highlighted their critical role. At Tarawa in November 1943, 6 code talkers maintained communications through 76 hours of relentless combat. Lloyd Oliver transmitted nearly non-stop for 48 hours, coordinating naval bombardments under constant shell fire. During the Marianas Campaign, 24 code talkers kept messages flowing around the clock at Saipan. Lieutenant Commander Takashi Horikawa had successfully broken standard communications to anticipate the invasion. But once the Marines came ashore, Japanese tactical intelligence went dark. Colonel Takashi Saito later remarked, "Commanders felt abandoned without the intelligence they had always relied upon." At Peleliu, code talker Jimmy King operated alone for 6 hours after his partner was killed. Under heavy fire, he flawlessly transmitted 40 messages, coordinating artillery from 3 battalions. The Battle of Iwo Jima showcased the code talker's greatest achievement. Major Howard Connor directed the entire initial assault through Navajo Code. For the invasion's critical first 48 hours, 6 code talkers working in teams kept continuous communication. General Tadamichi Kuribayashi had spent 2 years preparing an underground fortress with 11 miles of tunnels. His defense plan relied on intercepting American transmissions to time counterattacks. That plan collapsed completely. In just 2 days, the 6 code talkers sent and received more than 800 error-free messages. They coordinated the landing of 30,000 Marines, naval bombardments from 100 ships, close air support, enemy locations, medical evacuations, supply movements, and tactical orders, all while under relentless fire. Major Connor later testified, "Without the Navajos, the Marines would never have taken Iwo Jima." During those first 48 hours, I had 6 Navajo radio nets operating nonstop. They transmitted over 800 flawless messages. The entire operation ran on Navajo Code. Colonel Shigeo Hayashi reported to Kuribayashi that American codes were impossible to break. Requests for artillery fire that Navajo Code delivered in 20 seconds would have required 30 minutes through standard methods, the difference between capturing a position or losing it. At Okinawa, 35 code talkers directed the Pacific's largest assault, involving 183,000 troops over 82 days. Japanese forces tried jamming and even imitating voices, but they could not replicate Navajo's tonal complexity. Lieutenant Hiroshi Miyamoto's mimicry, according to code talker Alfred Newman, sounded like someone gargling while trying to talk. On August 14, 1945, code talker Teddy Draper transmitted one of the war's most important messages. Nehama Edagini Adanil, Japan's surrender. Fittingly, it traveled first through Navajo before conventional channels. After the war, interrogations revealed how extensive Japanese efforts had been, and how completely they had failed. Lieutenant General Seizo Arisue, Japan's chief of intelligence, admitted, "We never broke the Marine Code. We broke Army codes, Air Force codes, diplomatic traffic, but Marine Tactical Code remained secure." Captain Yasuji Kawamoto explained, "We recorded thousands of transmissions. Our best linguists studied them for 3 years. Nothing worked. It was our greatest cryptanalytic failure." Analysts in 1944 suspected the language might be Native American and requested German help. But German ignorance and wartime barriers blocked any progress. Colonel Masao Yamada conceded, "Our inability to read Marine messages cost thousands of lives." After 1942, every Marine operation was a mystery until it began. Major Hiroshi Tanaka, a survivor of Iwo Jima, described the psychological blow. We couldn't understand their words. It made us feel primitive, defeated before the battle even began. The war's end did not lighten the Code Talkers' burden. Their program stayed classified for possible Cold War use. They returned home unable to share their service. Many lived in states that still denied Native Americans voting rights. New Mexico and Arizona until 1948, Utah until 1957. Restaurants and hotels refused them service. They were war heroes who could not reveal their heroism. Chester Nez, last of the original 29 who died in 2014, wrote, "We were warriors who helped win the war, but we couldn't tell anyone." That silence was heavy. Many of us found healing in traditional ceremonies. The Enemy Way ceremony cleansed warriors of war's spiritual contamination. Dan Urke explained, "We used our language to direct death. We needed it for healing. The ceremonies reminded us that our language was sacred." In 1968, the program was finally declassified. The first public recognition came the following year at a 4th Marine Division reunion. President Reagan later declared August 14, 1982, as National Navajo Code Talkers Day. The greatest honor arrived on July 26, 2001, when President George W. Bush awarded the original 29 the Congressional Gold Medal in the U.S. Capitol Rotunda. Only 5 were alive to attend. Bush proclaimed, "Today we honor 29 Native Americans who gave their country a service only they could give." Chester Nez humbly replied, "We were ordinary men given an extraordinary task. We used our sacred language to help win the war." Although the Navajos are best known, 14 other tribes also contributed Code Talkers. The Choctaw had pioneered the concept in World War I. In World War II, 17 Comanche served in Europe, including at D-Day. Hopi, Cherokee, Lakota, and others also lent their languages. The 2008 Code Talkers Recognition Act finally honored all tribes. As John Brown Jr. observed, "They told us our language was no good. Then they needed it to win the war." The code revealed the sophistication of Native American languages. Code Talkers adapted Navajo in real time, crafting new grammatical structures and metaphors for military use. Its agglutinative nature allowed complex ideas in single words. What took paragraphs in English could be condensed into brief Navajo phrases. As Dr. William Morgan noted, this transformation highlighted both the resilience and richness of their language. They demonstrated that indigenous languages were anything but primitive. Navajo proved capable of expressing everything, from sacred ceremonies to modern warfare. The Navajo Code created a cultural form of encryption, a linguistic shield beyond the reach of mathematics. This idea later influenced post-war intelligence strategies and remains relevant today as quantum computing threatens conventional cryptography. Colonel David Hatch summarized it best. They achieved something unparalleled, a code, never broken, never compromised. It showed that human language could surpass mechanical encryption. In the 1980s, Japanese researchers studied their failure. Professor Teo Yoshikawa revealed that 30 cryptanalysts spent 2 years analyzing the transmissions, even consulting multiple universities. Captain Minoru Yamada admitted, "By late 1943, we knew it was a Native American tongue, but we couldn't identify which one." Lieutenant Commander Shigeru Fukumoto confessed, "Using a native language was so simple, so elegant, we never imagined it." In the 1990s, photographer Kenji Kawano captured surviving Code Talkers, bringing their story to Japanese audiences through exhibitions in Tokyo and Hiroshima. Code Talker Albert Smith told visitors, "We were both warriors. My language helped defeat you, but today it helps us understand each other." At a 2010 symposium of the Japanese Association of Intelligence Studies, Admiral Hiroaki Aribe declared, "The Navajo Code was perfect encryption. We had the best code breakers in Asia and still we were defeated." Chester Nez, the last of the original 29, passed away on June 4, 2014. Today, only 2 Code Talkers remain alive from the roughly 400 who served. Thomas H. Begay and Peter MacDonald, though not among the original 29, both played vital roles in the Code's wartime use. At age 96, MacDonald continued to speak publicly. "We showed that America's true strength lies in its diversity. Our languages and cultures make us stronger. The Navajo language, once suppressed, is now recognized as a strategic asset. Federal programs reference the Code Talker legacy, and young Native Americans are reclaiming ancestral languages with renewed pride." As Dr. Jennifer Dennett-Dale observed, the Code Talkers reshaped how Native people see themselves and how America sees Native people. They proved our languages are not relics but living resources. Between 375 and 420 Navajo Marines served as Code Talkers, transmitting tens of thousands of flawless messages under fire. Their achievement was not only military but symbolic. Indigenous men used the very language the government tried to erase to defend that same nation. From marginalized communities came a capability unmatched even by America's most powerful allies. Japanese failure represented more than a tactical loss, it revealed a deeper blindness. They anticipated American machines and codes, but not America's diversity. Their ideology of racial superiority collapsed when confronted with languages and cultures beyond their reach. As Lieutenant General Arisue admitted, Japan never broke the Marine Code. It meant facing an opponent whose strength lay in sources they could not comprehend. The Code Talkers embodied an America their adversaries could not imagine. A nation whose greatest strength was not industry alone but human diversity. Linguistic variety became strategic advantage. The very language boarding schools had tried to extinguish became central to victory in the Pacific. Now, as the last Code Talkers pass into history, their legacy endures. What was once forbidden is taught proudly. Native American veterans are recognized as serving at the highest per capita rates. The principle that diversity strengthens security has become accepted doctrine. Across the Pacific battlefields, voices speaking Navajo carried a message greater than orders or coordinates. They carried proof that America's strength is rooted in many voices, different peoples, different languages, united in purpose yet empowered by differences. The unbroken code teaches that diversity is not weakness but power. Japanese intelligence officers who failed to break it recognize this truth most clearly. Some codes cannot be solved, not because of complexity in mathematics, but because of the infinite complexity of human cultures. The Code Talkers sent messages Japan never deciphered, but their greatest message was universal. Diversity brings strength. Culture carries power. Indigenous knowledge serves modern needs. Young Navajo Marines once turned a sacred language into a weapon of war and later into an instrument of peace. They proved that America's strongest encryption is its diversity itself, unbreakable because it is drawn from the limitless experiences and wisdom of its people. The code remains unbroken, alive in every Native child who learns their ancestral tongue with pride, in every recognition that minority contributions enrich national identity, in every reminder that difference makes us stronger together. The Code Talkers left eternal proof. Many voices, many peoples, many languages, united yet diverse, form the unbreakable code of freedom.